Good evening, everyone. Alrighty. Starting a little bit late tonight, but that's alright. Kind of looks a bit of a chaos for me at the moment, so kind of decided we'd shift things to Tuesday night and see how we go. Might make the shift a bit more permanent later on, as Monday seems to be pretty heavy, but we will see how that all plays out. So let's drop the music down a little bit and let's get moving. Cool, here we go. Alright, so we're continuing tonight with our development. Not too much tonight that's going to be particularly heavy, full screen the code. We're just going to keep working, plugging away at different elements of this system, building out the APIs. Might do a little bit of front end stuff just from like the admin page component, and we'll just see where we get. So I've got the applications running. We will let's just rebuild, make sure it's still build. We haven't broken anything since last time. Nothing should have been actually touched on it since last time. And if we do the startup, so no, apparently something wasn't particularly running well. Unhandled exception. Sorry. One per action may be balanced. So there's something it doesn't like there. Okay. Well, that's where we're going to start tonight then, is in the trade items controller. Buy trade item. Doesn't like something there. So let's go find that. Now, I wish Visual Studio could zoom in on this section here, but it's also my face is hiding that section too. So that's just the Solution Explorer. So what it might do, just so we can all see it, let's shift this across here. But I wish I could zoom in the text on this side. It is quite small. But alright. So Trade Items Controller doesn't like something because it's being defined twice. It's buy trade item, add trade item. So what it might not like is that the route here. So turn me down here, tab more. Bit excitable tonight. So we got the post here, and your post here, and the route's going to be what's different. So that's the add, and that's the buy. So what we most likely want to do here is give this a route. I think this is how I make that work. Is that correct? Or is there a comma? Not those. Comma. No, it's not. There's a whole separate tag itself. Post route. Add. That's fine. Fine, but we also want missing the authorize on that one, and that one can be all's user. Alright, let's build that and see if that had fixed our issue. No, still doesn't like, has more than parameters specified or inferred bound to the request body. Okay, so that wasn't so much the issue, but that's okay. Here we go. So it's got, so the issue here is that we've got two items. So we've got spaceship entry and then the trade item entry. We technically have 3. So what we need to do then is we need to wrap that in a request. So that's okay, we can do that. So let's go and add that as a new model. And we'll call it trade request. That's okay, because this will also let us wrap up our sell request as well. And we want to make a base class for request. What do we reckon? I reckon we might, since we might have different types of requests which all share similar things. Actually, no, let's leave it at the moment. Let's not overcomplicate until it needs to be. So the trade request here. So I'm just going to put that down here. So what are we looking for? So okay. So almost what we want. Thank you, Copilot. We want a trade item entry as the item, and we're going to rename the quantity to what do we name it here? We named it amount, so let's keep amount. And then rename it amount, just for when we create a new empty one. So it'll have an ID, which will be good. It'll have the trade item entry itself and the ship that it's trading to, and the amount of items it's trading. We don't need the buy and the sell price because that is being captured inside the entry for the trade item. So that simplifies that. So what we do is we come here and we replace this with the trade request. And then we'll log request with ID D. All right. The ship request item request amount. Okay, so we've got that there. Now that might be something we want to track the requests so people can see previous requests complete, but we'll have a look at that later. Okay. Now we most likely want to do something here which checks the request is valid, but we'll leave that for the moment. Again, a lot of this validation and cleanup stuff we'll do in a refactor class. Okay, so let's build. That's built. Let's run. Okay, that seems to be a bit happier with that now. So if we bring up our windows, so all right. Now remembering which one was our it's 72. No, it's not 72. 82? There we go, 82. Alright, let's log in. Make sure the login stuff still works. Login still works. And then we're going to do API test. So, that's giving us failure. Didn't like something. Request matched multiple endpoints. Okay, cool. So, what are we calling there? Let's go look at that call. Let's see what we will call them. Okay. So we got the token generator, we got the code. It's on initialize async. Well, I'm not gonna call the weather forecast anymore because that's not relevant. Now it was calling to get async on the account. So we have HTTP get, which is the admin get account. Okay, and then we'll have the player. So let's do some routing in here. So it's account controller. What we're going to do here is on the route this to admin. So anything that has admin in it, we're going to add the route admin to. And that should fix that. How many posts do we have? We just have the one post. And get, so we've got get on admin. Alright, cool, so that should fix that one. So we should be able to go back here, still logged in, API test, and that's fine, and then we go look at still had a failure. Okay. I don't know why we still have failures. Let's try that again. So there's our two windows. We'll come back to here. We'll reset entirely, so we'll log out. So we'll do the login. Okay, that's fine. So login worked fine there. Now if we go to our API test, request matched multiple endpoints. Okay. Still matching on multiple endpoints when we do the get localhost / account. So there's a get there and the route there. Should only be one get. We're having issues unless I'm doing something very silly. Let's clean and build that one again. Just want to be really sure. That should be right. And then we do so it's still complaining about player get, admin get. Okay, that's a bit funny. Let's bring up, where's our little tool? Hello, Copilot. Where is Copilot tonight? No, Copilot doesn't seem to be with us. It was working before. Where has my Copilot chat gone? Window. No. installed. We have... Oh, they're installed. Where is the window then? Here we go, Copilot chat. Alright, let's ask Copilot, see if he can help us figure out what's going on. Alright, ask him and check the account control locks are getting errors. Code block you provided. Because I was still. Let's try it again. Because being in the right file. Because I think it pulled in that file. Okay, so I'm using route wrong. That's the problem. So maybe doing it that way. So I thought route should have done that, but I guess I'm wrong. Well, let's find out. Okay, that's running. API is running. There we go. Cool. That was a me problem. I thought the route tag would actually have done the routing, but clearly not. That's okay. Alright, so we're in the get account. We can just continue on that one. It's hitting it twice. Again, that's within Razor or Blazor that does on page refresh. It's mostly to do with how I've got it running on the account, like the page initialization. But that's fine. Cool, so there we go. Oh, good. Thank you, Copilot chat. Alright. So it's all up and running again. That's all good. Now I most likely need to do the same here. Do, but that's good. Go. Call that endpoint add. Cool. Alrighty. So we have our account information. We have our spaceship. We have our trade items. Now, what do you want to define next within these models? Let's do the space station. So first things first, let's go and create a model. I'll call it a space station. Did I make everything? Yes, so these all inherit from my entity. So public string D string, so I'll call it name. So I'll have the list of trade item entries that it has, list of ships that are docked. I'm going to give it a array of int, and we're going to call this coordinates. Yeah, so we'll give it coordinates. So this is so that we can give it a location within the actual environment, and then we can be able to work out distances between things, so then when ships are traveling, we can have them travel. So that's cool. All right, so that's so let's set up the constructor. We won't give it a specific name as of yet. So and yeah, let's just do 2D coordinates for the moment. We can look at 3D coordinates later if we feel like it, but again, for this, we'll mostly stick with 2D. Okay. That's fine. Cool. Alright, so that gives us our entity. And then what we will want to do, we want to create a service for that entity. Again, keeping things abstracted. So I'm going to call this space station service. And we'll just open up our spaceship service because that will be relevant here. Okay, we're going to start with an interface. Space station service. Right, what do we want to do with this interface? So we'll do the space station add station. So this is doing this kind of basic kind of CRUD operation there. Update station. Get station, and then get listable stations. Okay, cool. So we're doing that. I don't think we need to get any of these entries here. Okay, so we mostly need to include this into the trading logic that we put in a little bit ago. That's fine. So we'll then have, okay, so this should be enough for the space station itself. I think we're actually going to have to add logic to space station. Okay, now that should be fine, and that's then doing the iRepository, which is fine. So we'll be using it's data, I think. There we go. So we're using the repository there for our data. Okay. So what we might do now is actually create a service for, so this is again just updating. I'm going to create a service to actually handle trades for us. And what we might do also there is start creating a log which logs activities. So I've got that trade request. Okay, what I want to do here is public call it a trade type. So this can be buy or sell. Okay, default that it's buy, that's fine. Okay. So before I get too far, let's quickly go create a controller for space stations, so we can add space stations in as we need to and edit them and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, now get space station. Let's get, so I can copy what we have in this controller. So do authorize roles user private. Put the logger in, space station service in. That should be fine. Why couldn't we find the space station service? Because it's in the service, not the model. Right. Okay, we'll do the get. Do the add. Alrighty. So we can do that here, so we're just doing the get. That's string ID. Sure, we'll just do it that way for the moment. Okay. So get and get ID is something that everyone should be able to do, and that's fine. But then we're going to require the admin authorization to add and modify. Okay. That should be fine. Cool. And then before I forget, let's make sure I add this. Space station service. Did I not do the inheritance? I did not. Oh, what am I missing? Does not include get stations. There we go, solved. Okay, that's that done, Alrighty. So, let's see. So, the space station, got a trade request. Oh, I just realized I did a bad here. I have not actually done anything here. So let's see, can I stash all of this? No, I don't want to stage it. I want to stash it. Stage. Alright. Going to let me stash that way. Okay, so if I stash all of this, that should do that. Okay, cool. So now I should be able to go new branch, call this week 3, and then I'm going to apply all of this. Okay, cool. I'll just commit all that, and then we're just gonna push all that up. Cool, there we go. Problem solved. No crisis about having done all that work on the main branch. Then not being able to commit it to main branch, because you should not commit to main branches. You should always do pull requests. Alrighty. So, continuing on. What I want to do now is just go to trade request. I'm not going to trade a controller for it yet. I want to trade a trade service. Trade service. What this is going to do is this is where we're going to implement the logic around what trade stuff we're doing and all the logic there. Hey Liz. Alrighty. Let's think about what we actually want to do here. So we'll do a polypool acute trade. Now what information do we need here? So we know that, so we'll grab the username because we want to track the ID for the ship, the ID for the trade, item ID and the quantity. I think what we'll do here, instead of doing the IDs, let's do the actual objects. So we'll do a spaceship entry, ship, and then we'll do a trade item entry, and call it trade item. We don't need the quantity because that's included. Oh no, we do need the quantity. Quantity. Okay. So that's it. So at the moment we're just going to have execute trade. And we'll actually in the space station as well. So we need to know where the trade is taking place. Okay. Cool. So let's inherit from my trade services. I'm going to put in the iLogger. So we must need player repository to get player details. We ship repository gets ship details. Actually, no, I'm not going to use the repositories. And we're going to use the services. Alright, and we're going to give these all public read only. Should have done that before. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Thank you, Copilot. Alright, and then we need a public for execute trade. So I want to see what Copilot comes up with if I get it to do that. Let's see, is Copilot. Alright, so let's have a look, see what Copilot did. Alrighty, so first of all, it checked to see if all the parameters were null. If not, it's for exception. Or if they were null, it's for exceptions. It's good. Get count by the username. And get station by the station ID. That's fine. And get that by its ID. Okay. I think I've misspelled quantity here. Alright, what was it? So it's the quantity in the trade that's being executed. So we need to check against the item itself. Alright. So where, and we'll say T dot item is equal to trade item dot item first or default quantity. Now it's complaining, saying that that could possibly be a null reference, so I guess what we first have to do, so let's put some comments in here just to help out with this. Hey BLT, welcome to the stream. Alrighty, so let's put some comments down so we know what we're doing. So we get information, station information, get ship information. Alright, cool. Get entry information. Yep, that should be fine. And then we check if it doesn't stop. But what we should do before that is we should check if station has item at all, not just in stock. So now it's still going to complain here, but fine. Alright, how? There's possibly a null reference, and that's fine. That's fine. Can be a null reference. Okay. So we're checking to see if player has enough credits. Yep, that makes sense. Now there's complaining here. The null check can be simplified. There we go. We'll simplify that null reference check, which is good. Okay, that's fine. Oh, don't do that anyway. Alright. What is it trying to do here? So, so it wants we want to actually execute the trade with the station. Alright. Now this is where we're going to have to rework some logic, I think. So we don't have any logic in here to handle the buying of items, but that's okay. So we have the trade item service here. So what we're going to do is we're going to update this to include space station. Again, verify station has been provided. So we'll actually do all the checks that we did out there in the trade service. We don't need to do a lot of this check, so we still check this is all here. We'll do a lot of that station checks. Now we can say we've done them there, so we don't actually need to do them inside this service. So we know by the time we get here, Space Station has the amount of stuff we need and has the player has credits. That's fine. So we check that the cargo space is enough within the ship. Now the ship credits is not actually something we're doing. We'll do player credits, make that universal. We'll do that outside. So what we want to do now is remove from station. Care about the used cargo space. And so I'm removing the trade item. Trade item entry didn't have an amount, did it? Oh, it does have a quantity in it. Alright, cool. So that'll have that quantity. So if we say alright. We're going to create a method called remove trade item, and we will generate that method. We'll go to that method. The space station service. Put that into here. Don't want it to be internal. put it into the data model. So we'll say provided, that's fine. So we should have already done the check, but so it doesn't hurt to do the check again. Okay. Wants us to do a get trade item. Do that as private. Okay, and then let's do a return. So it's like void entry. Okay, it's fine. All right. So if the trade item is more than what's getting removed, enter an exception. We know the trade. Okay, so now what's wrong here? Okay. Right, let's do it this way. Let's do it that way. Need that exception in here. Cool. Alright. And now we should just be able to No, not actually. No, I don't want to do it this way. I don't want to do it this way because I want to keep this as the data model, so when I update this, I can then save it straight to the database. Whereas if I'm doing that, I'm going to have to then take that reference that I've gotten from that list and then try and update the list again and then submit the database. So I don't want to do that. That's okay. I can use the service here to actually do this stuff. So what we want to do is we want to say public void so I'll do an add and I'll do a public remove. Okay, and then we're going to say so make sure that it's space station. Okay, so adding is easy. So we go, we change new station has item. It does update. Okay, easy enough. Yeah, that's just going to add it as an entry, which we don't actually want to do. So first of all, we go station dot. First any. T is equal to T dot. No, these will be separate IDs. So what you want is actually the item to match. The IDs will be different. Alright, so let's see what it is. So where to get the item does not equal null, then okay. It doesn't like that. Oops, not that. Nope. That's complaining. Doesn't like this. It cannot be. Yeah, great. Doesn't like not being. Alright. So just gonna complain at me for a while. That's fine. Okay, simplify the link query apparently. We're still gonna get issue there. No, don't want to do any of that. How do I get rid of the warning? How do I get rid of that warning, Copilot? Okay, so first check if the verify the station and the trade times are not null. Okay, here we go. Does that not satisfy this? Sometimes the null checking can be a real pain. So say, okay. Something null there doesn't work because it doesn't want that to be null. How do I get this to like me? So I'm checking if the trade item's not null, that's fine. We know that the item itself exists, that's fine. Int, so it's non-nullable. Alrighty. So I'm just gonna leave that one there because that's been a pain. I'm just saying there's a possible null reference to make. I don't know where. What was it? If no. And actually, if I do this, it's still going to tell me the issue is that it could be a null reference. Okay. Alright, sure thing. It's overkill anyway. We'll live with it for the moment. I'm just actually going. Can I put a suppress on this one? No, it's not even going to let me suppress it now. Okay. Just deal with the warning for now. Okay, cool. So we've got an add, and then if we do a remove, it will be pretty simple. Yeah, we'll make sure that station's not null, entry is not null. And then we'll say if and then we'll say again after this we if okay, lots of null issues. I think I'll go through this. Okay, yes, this is .NET 7, so it's being very, very sticklery about possible nulls and all that stuff. I could turn off the null checking in the project, but I do want to leave it on because it's at least good to be aware of it, and then come back through and refactor later and try to remove the issues, try and figure out kind of better ways of doing it, which is going to handle any kind of null within this. There shouldn't be any nulls in it, but saying that, you're going to run into the risk of there somehow propping up a null and the whole application dies because you didn't handle it. So I think it's best to handle it where we can here. So that's fine. Cool. Yeah, I think Twitch has mangled your suggestion there. Trying to decipher what Twitch chat has said to that message. Give me a sec. So let's see if I can decipher, because it's put all these stars in. Other than the lambdas and arrow. Yeah, no, it's decided to filter out some of the words in the middle of that. So we got the first to default T item. So we're saying, so we're putting in. I think I see what you're doing there. So we're doing a. So it's equal to the item. So I'll just put this. So we go station dot tray items dot first of default. The item is equal to the entry item. And we're not doing. So yeah, doesn't like whatever three-letter word you're trying to use. And then we're doing an is item. This trade item. So we're checking. Is that where we go? So is. And creating like an anonymous type of something. So I haven't run into the. So that's creating that as a local variable. And then we're able to then use that local variable. And here. I think that looks like it's working. So this is creating what this is a. So going with the first default. That creating a local variable, then updating that local variable. Okay. So we don't need that stuff there. And then we can say if quantity is use unassigned. That's interesting. Then I'll say if the quantity should just say equals to 0 at the moment. Item is not null here, used unassigned item. It's assigned here. That's interesting, I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, essentially it means is not null. Okay, cool. Yeah, haven't run into that one before. That's cool. Yeah, not sure why it doesn't, because it's letting me do the item, the update here, Now here when I'm doing a check, because I want to actually then remove it from the list if it's 0. Put curlies in. Scope. Yep. That'll do it. Because I'm putting it on the next line. Cool. Alright, well, thanks for that, Keith. Cool, so I should be able to do something pretty much the same up here too. So again, if we take this as our accessor and checking the null, and then we can do the same there. And that greatly simplifies the entire thing. Cool. Definitely lock that one away. So cool, we have a add trade item entry and a remove trade item entry in the service now. So we should then be able to go back to our trade service here and then simplify. So we're doing the checks, making sure there's stock, making sure that the player can afford. And then we're doing the, so we're calling the service, and now I didn't put that in the yes, the add else. Thank you. In case I'm adding in a new item that doesn't exist. It's almost forgot that case, which would have been better. It's like you can either add it if it exists, or if it doesn't exist at all, you can't do anything with it. Okay. Alrighty. Now I didn't add it to the interface yet. Build station by ID. Call this one add trade item entry. Go, that's what we want. Thank you, Copilot. And back to the trade service. Okay. And trade station and entry. Call it trade item. Okay. Well, it doesn't like something. Because we don't actually have an entry for that. That's fine. Okay, just thinking, going back to that service, because we will need to update the repository, because we're modifying it, so we need to actually go and update it so that it persists that into the database. Cool. Alright, so we've got that. So that's adding it to the space station. So that's an add. We need to also handle if the case is, so that's for if it's a buy type. Did I put that in the model? I'm sure I did. I'll put that in the request. So execute trade. No, I want to put it inside the model because then we'll be able, we want to actually save all these requests so these trade entries into the database so we can keep track of what's happening, effectively build up like a ledger without really building a ledger at this point. I'm not sure I'm going to go that far as to build a ledger system, but we'll see. Again, it's one of those things where the more complicated and the more fully featured we make the monolith, when we come to the point with actually pulling it apart, we're going to run into more interesting cases where it's okay, we've got maybe a ledger here which is centralized. How do we deal with that? Can we deal with a distributed ledger? Things like that. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do some research on how to build out a ledger properly. I did run into it in the past and I kind of forgot how it all works, so I'd need to research that. Okay, so in here we want to add a public string trade type, and then this will be whether or not it's a buy or sell trade. We did put that in the request, and so it'll actually be in here. So we don't actually need the amount or the trade type within the trade request itself. So that's what will be coming from the front end. Okay. I'm sure that broke some stuff. This is saying I'm not inheriting something, so we don't need the int amount in that anymore. What was that? Buy trade item. So go through, do some cleanup. Actually need this one's a mess. What have I done here? And let's also rename this to be trade just to be clear on what it is. Okay. So we have the space station here, but we actually need the station service to go ahead and modify anything to do with that. Space station service dot new station add this in here. There we go. Where was I? Here. Okay, so it removes it from the station. Okay, so that adds that to the ship, and then we update the entry to the ship, and then we return trade on entry. Alright, cool. So that's that one. And then we do a public trade entry. So now the return type on this may not be relevant here, but that's right, we will figure that out. Alright, and Copilot did almost Copilot. Not quite, just missed one there. Ship cargo space is irrelevant here because we're sending it to the station, we're not checking, and we're removing it from the cargo hold. From cargo hold. And then we're saying now we need to, so adding that trade item, doing the use space, and then we want to remove the item here. So we can do the same thing what we just did over here. So let's go grab this. I'm going to Alright, so we're getting that trade item entry again, and then we're removing the amount from the trade entry, and then if that is equal to 0, then we're doing a ship.cargo.remove item. Okay, nice and simple. And then we update the ship. Station will already have been updated when we process that. Alrighty. I think we're on track with that one, which is good. Alright. So we got the buy trade item, sell trade item. So that's those done, and let's see if I got them in. Here we go, public entry, sell trade item. Now what are you complaining about? Does not implement the buy trade item, sell trade item. What do you mean it's not? Because I'm missing the station from those. Okay, there we go, fix that. Alrighty. So that should be fine. So this is a trade request. request. Okay, so in the request we're actually missing a space station. So we'll need a space station in the request as well. So trade will happen. All trades will happen at space stations at this point. Cool. So we don't have quantity there, that's correct. So don't actually need to do anything with that because that will do the update. We have the player already, so we will just be able to do a player. There's the total costs there. Okay, and then we will need to do a update there. Okay. We're trying to look at based on other things. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so we've got that should be now. We should be wrapping this in a transaction, because effectively what we want to say is if at any point this fails, roll back. Don't undo things that have been done. I'll come back to that, but also putting it in a transaction I know will create a lot more complexity when we come to pulling this part as microservice. This is something I've experienced where you get transactions involved and then those transactions get distributed, and it can create a lot of problems there. So we might have some part like do a transaction, but I will stay away from them just for the simplicity at this stage rather than getting really deep in the weeds on how to distribute those kind of systems. But we'll see. Again, if I find a good, nice, kind of clean example where we can do it and show how to do it well, I'll definitely dive into that. But if it gets super messy, we might just refactor away from it. Cool. So we now have a 0 errors, 0 warnings. Let's of course check the build. Make sure we still can build. We can still build. Alrighty. So that should give us then to a trade service. We didn't execute trade. If we go back to the trade controller, so that's the trade items controller. And that's right. So let's put in a new one. I'm going to call this cell. And okay, if everyone can just give me a sec. Just being asked to open a thing. So let's see. Random interlude while I open a jar. Or at least think about opening a jar because it doesn't want to open. Alright.
It's because you're on camera.
It's because I'm on camera that it doesn't want to open. Cool. I will be back in a minute.
Sorry, everybody.
Once I have opened this jar. I don't want to pull that across too much. Alright, back in a bit. Alright, jar is open, mission accomplished, and now back to coding. Cool, alrighty. So, let's get back to doing this. The authorized user is kind of redundant here. The admin one makes sense, but we don't need to authorize users because we're authorizing users up at the top of the controller. Okay. So we'll just log that out and then we will hit that one. So that should be fine. Just thinking in the trade item service. Because we're executing these trades, I think I want to actually make sure I add this to make sure I'm actually committing that trade item entry into the database each time. Let's do that only after. So let's make sure that everything here is processed properly, correctly before we then add the entry into there. Now, of course, we run into the risk of doing all these things and then this fails to update the ship. The station's been updated at this point, so no, change my mind. I'm gonna actually log that first, so it gives us a chance of finding issues if they happen. And again, this would make more sense holding it in a transaction to do all of these things, so that if something went wrong, we could do a rollback. Okay. So that's that. Okay. So, what do I want to do next? So that should be fine. Again, most of this untested. I'm sure this will have issues as we get to using it. But I'll kind of run into them a bit more when I do a bit more of the front end and actually put something in which can interact with this directly. And what I might do now, just to deviate a bit, is get into the background task manager. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to be part of the system which processes things. Now we could have done it where we had all of the trades process on this tick, but I actually want to keep them separate. Have them just kind of more instantaneously trade, which stops us running into kind of conditions where people put trades in at certain times, and because they're not being processed kind of in that real time, people can do a whole bunch of things and then kind of cause an issue when the server does its update tick, which is what we don't want. So we'll keep the trading being more direct, real time, but what we will update on kind of the tick is the movement of where is the ship traveling. Is it traveling between two space stations? How long does that travel time take? I think I gave them the ship's fuel. Yes, I've given them a fuel, so we could do things such as deduction of fuel as they move. We could also kind of do generation of resources for the space station. So they could have a certain kind of generation, or they could have a kind of usage of materials is what I'm going for. So they'll have their trade items, and their trade items may generate over time, so they increase, and then their trade items might decrease as they use them. So the way we want to do that, again, we're kind of keeping with this monolith idea, so we'll actually be running this within the main application. And how we want to do this is using a background worker. So what we'll do is, again, we'll just lean on Copilot a bit, because we could open up all the websites to try and do it, but let's see what Copilot says. Let's make sure I'm in the right file. Yep. That's so it's saying we should create a worker. We're going to create that in a new file, and we'll call it worker for the moment. That makes sense. We'll stick it in here. Make sure we namespace. Just in that API namespace. All right. So this should be execute async. So I want to see if I can do dependency injection with this, so we can access all of the things. So it says we should be able to, and then we just would have to register it. Right, already got the iLogger here. Missed that, didn't I? Cool. So we should be able to then using models and services. No, we're not going to need the account service. We need the spatial service. Yeah. And space station service. And the trade item service, maybe. But we'll have it in there just in case. Go ahead and update that. Okay. So what do I need to put? No, that's not what I'm asking Copilot. So it's add hosted service, that's the one we want. So if we go back into here, so what we want here is we want builder dot services dot add hosted service, and it will be worker. Actually, let's rename it from worker, because worker's not exactly Rename it server tick. Okay, and then we'll rename the file server tick as well. Okay, should be fine. And now program be so it should just be that hosted service. Okay. Now, so that's going to give us the delay of when that's running. And so that's going to wait for 1 second, and then we're going to do things. Do things. Alrighty, so what we're going to need here, sorry, just checking that message, is we're going to need things to do. And part of that's going to be around how do we have the service for the spaceships. So we're going to have this give us some locations and moving ships around. What we might do here before we get too much further, let's do a commit just to make sure we're getting everything in. Added this controller into handle station. And the server tick. Alright. No. Don't need those stats dash anymore, we're done with that. Push those changes up. Cool. Alright. So, what we want to be able to do is, so we can get the ship, so we can get the ship location. So actually, in the ship, because we'll want to persist this data of where the ship is and where it's going. So we'll do that in the model. So we've got a location which would be, okay, we'll need to update that. So the location will actually be the space station. Okay, let's just think through this a little bit. So, space station is where it will be docked. But when it is between the space station, we need to know where it's going and how far it's going. So, rather than actually adding anything to the spaceship entity, what we'll do is we'll make a new model, new entity, and what this will be is this will be a spaceship route. It's called route now. So this is where the spaceship's going to be going. So it's fine. Again, it'll be entity, because this will be something that will be persisting. String get set, and he's just requiring the ID is an yes. So I'll get the spaceship entry for the actual ship, and then we'll do a public int coordinates. Don't know if it's destination coordinates. So where it is, where it's going, and the ship, which should give us the speed. So the app I'm building is actually completely standalone, so it's not really tying into any other game, but it's just kind of building a space game as a way of framing how you build a large API. So with many moving parts, and the idea is it's a big monolith system. So you've got all these components inside this big monolith application. And there's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of things happening, so ships moving around, trading of items. Mostly going to build a couple of bots maybe to play this game, maybe even throw a very simple web front end on it so other people can play it. But the idea was to generate traffic and then start to see where, as a monolith, it starts to break down. So are we pushing too many transactions through? Is there too many things happening within the server ticks? The server ticks can't keep up. All those kind of things that you would typically see in a big monolith application that can't scale. Could be an actual game. We'll see how that goes. Not like I'm not building kind of a 3D front end. It's literally going to be like a Blazor website front end. Very simple. But there's nothing to stop it growing if it does actually build into something good. Could always do that later. But then the other idea is once it gets to that scale where synthetic testing is starting to break it down, we're going to start pulling it apart into microservices. So maybe we'll do like a macro service thing first, where we find the bottlenecks, pull them out, scale them, see how that works, see what complexity that brings in, and then look at, okay, how do we scale up certain components? What does that do? Does that make more bottlenecks somewhere else? And just investigate essentially how you go about taking a monolith and breaking it into microservices, and all the pitfalls and things I'm sure we'll run headlong into as we do it. So that's the general idea, but could go anywhere really. Yeah, we could totally try like switching language for some of the microservices. Some of them it might make sense for Go to be kind of a different language that's used to do a certain component of it. So we could have different database architectures. So I am using a repository pattern, so we can do different database options for persisting some data. And again, that's all part of this, is trying to build something very basic to start with and very kind of traditional, at least traditional in legacy in the legacy sense, and then start to try and pull those parts and show where these things happen. So, yeah, that would be cool. I think that would actually be good if we do have some other people that want to contribute, because that would again be showing how you can do this in teams. How can you get a couple of people to actually contribute? How do you then manage those contributions through GitHub, pull requests, things like that? Would be really cool to see. So of course the first challenge is getting the monolith done. So, but we'll see where we get. Yes, yeah, we'll be doing the whole hosting story. We'll be using Azure for the hosting, so GitHub Actions, Azure deployments. Most probably use Azure App Services, so container apps for this, not App Service, just due to I don't like App Service. I'm not a fan of it. I like my containers, but yeah, we use Azure Container Apps to run it, and that will facilitate in then expanding that out. But maybe this first version we should run it on a VM and really embrace the legacy monolith lifestyle. Just old VM, we could even put that in AWS if I'm feeling spicy, but maybe not. Cool. Alrighty. So that's for the route. So again, we'll just use integers, do a nice 2D field for now, but that can be changed. Yeah. So I'll stick it on my Raspberry Pi. See where it breaks. No, the only problem with Raspberry Pi is I can't use the SQL Server backend, which makes me sad. But that's SQL Server on ARM is still a thing. I should actually check. I should reach out to someone at Microsoft and say, hey, are you doing SQL Server on ARM? Is that a thing? Would make me happy if you did. Most likely not. Alrighty, so that's spaceship route. That's good. That's there. We're going to need a new service and a new controller to create and manage the routes. So we need new services for everything. Yeah, we could totally use Postgres and do it that way as well. So I'm just using SQL because it's easy for running in Docker on my machine. So, but yeah, we are using that repository pattern for our data, so we do have the repository here, which we could just supplement in instead of using application DB context. We could substitute in a context for Postgres, and I think we're using Entity Framework there for the context, and I think there's a Postgres extension for that anyway as well, so that would not be too difficult. All right. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I'm putting my using in models in there. Put that one first. ID. Oh. Void because we don't return anything on the delete. Cool. Oops. Yeah. Yep. Repository. What that using controls data. Cool. Just use Copilot here. Cool. So there we go. So that service generated thanks to Copilot doing all that work for me. It'll be also I've generated a lot of the code for this project using Copilot, so it will be interesting to see how that goes as things scale out, because I haven't deeply checked the code. So there could be a whole heap of like bad coding practices in here, really bad code smells that I'm not seeing just yet because I haven't really delved into it. But we'll see that as performance goes through. So that'll start to show some of the pitfalls of getting Copilot to generate a whole heap of code for you. Could be performance hits that we're not seeing yet, which we'll then have to debug and refactor, which is fine. That's all good, all part of the fun. Let's go to controller, API empty, and this will be the spaceship route controller. Okay. It's an interesting suggestion there, Copilot. Not really what I'm after. Just grab the controller. Okay, so we want to make sure we're adding in the correct authorize user. Oh, actually, that's one. The user on this one, because it's making, we only want them to be able to define routes and get routes for their own ships. So that's something we have to check here. We don't want the user to just be able to say, hey, give me the routes of everyone and add a route to someone else's ship. So again, we've got to think about stuff like that when we're doing this, because we're not building the front end so much ourselves yet. So there's nothing, and because we're running an API, there's nothing once they have a token stopping them trying to call the API themselves. Okay. Okay, that's the services. Route service. Let's call it something different. So let's get all spaceship routes. This one we will want only admin roles to be able to get. It's fine. And we'll actually do admin on the path there, just so it's segregated. Alrighty. Alright. So alright, let's finish routes. Now let's get for specific ID. Okay, and public. Okay. Well, this is just the system roles at the moment. We'll get into some of the fun naming stuff later when we actually do some other things from the front end. Alright. So that's adding a route. Now, when I did the spaceship, I need to check. Did give it a ship there, so the ship entry. Position remains the same. We should be referring to admins as admirals, I guess. That is what we're going with there. Okay. So here we go, we'll do the yeah, let's add that to the route. Let's actually add a direct player ID, because that'll just make things easier. If we add the player ID in here, then we will be able to confirm that player is the one who's creating. No. Oh no, yep, no, that's fine. Because the player ID will have to match based off the logged in user. Because we're doing the authentication there. So that's fine. But we'll need the account service. Alright, thank you, Copilot, adding that in for me. That's fine, deal with the nullable there. So if the player is null, then there's no error there. If the player ID is not equal, there we go. So it's technically good, stored as a string, which is not great. So we will be going through and refactoring that a bit later. I need to redo that because I've did the identity piece a little funny with the player, so I do need to go through and redo all of that, which is fine. That's a refactor to happen later on, because yes, as it scales, using a string is going to be the worst. The format's going to be pretty bad. Even good will be bad. Cool. Well, thanks for stopping by, BLT. It's good to see you on stream. Might be doing Tuesday nights more often. Monday nights seem to be a bit hard to get going at the moment. Cool. So where were we? Okay, so adding. We want to do a delete. Or do an update. Allow them to be updated. Verify that information again, and then delete. So players can only delete their own routes. Okay. And then we'll do a so far it's going to be and delete and authorize admin go. Alrighty. So we'll do this as admin, add that there. So do a also need to be more consistent with these pathings too. So I'm being a bit slapdash with them at the moment too. Cool. Alrighty. Admin. Cool. So that's that. So that should be then control of putting in spaceship routes. Cool. Then in and commit that one. Alrighty. So now if we go back to the server tick, we have another service to add in. That one in, and that's added that. Good. Okay. So okay, so don't spaceship service, we want the spaceship route service. Get all the spaceship routes. Okay. These routes. And then go route. So get the ship. Actually, just thinking on that. Just remembering issues. Remembering issues with energy framework on that. Most likely. Okay, so that gets me the ship ID there. So if we not quite what we're doing. Alright. So we've got duty vector and we need to calculate given current position. So let's say ship. Okay. See if Cobalt can help me with this, because my brain's starting to turn off. And I don't want to figure out the mathematics behind it. Come on, Copilot. help me. Come on, Copilot, save me from having to think. Don't wanna. What's this math helper? Don't think math helper is a thing. Thanks, Copilot. I haven't defined a math helper. Alright. Mostly you should define a math helper, but that's alright. Okay. So, okay. So we need to figure out the lengths between the 2 points. Okay. Okay, so I guess we're making it a bit more explicit. So we don't want the time. The time's important here. Okay, so we get this one, and then yeah, be really verbose here. And that's double. That's, of course, I've used integers here, which makes it hard because doing mathematics. So let's do an int parse. It's not going to allow me to do. No, it's not going to allow me to. Can I just cast it for now? Yeah, that's rough. But that'll be a problem later. Because we will we're converting from floating points to integers, or from doubles to integers. Because the speed, no, the speed is int, but the yeah, it's all. But as soon as we come in doing the math square root, math power, all that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see if ships actually ever get to their destination, or if we end up in a situation where it's giving us, like, it should round down. It should round down. It should be fine. Okay. And we're going to check if the ship. Not quite what we're going for. Because we don't want to say, it's like we want that to, if this destination, yeah, no, it's doing a whole lot of stuff I don't want it to do. So if this destination equals 0, and that's fine, then we'll say do we have that in the routes? Do we have a name for our destination? Put in the station ID. I have space station service there, that's fine. There we go. Alright, so that's that, and then we should. Well, what I'll do is I'll create another. Create a new single finished routes and add that route. Just so that we don't try and modify a list that we're iterating over. There we go. So that should manage all of the movement component there. So that's movement. I think we'll leave that there. What I want to check though is when I've done this trading, have I enforced that to execute the trade the ship must be at the station? Most likely not. Okay. Do I not track the ship location there? Because I certainly should be. Ah, I see an issue there. Okay. Alright. Yeah, let's put it here. So, big string. That's fine. So what we have is we have it inside here. Also need to, in the spatial entry, have and I just realized we don't actually use the ship credits. Okay. That needs to be double. No, let's keep this in. Let's keep it simple. Most likely change all of those values to doubles later when we want to do things a bit more. We can just have simple numbers. Alright. Now, in the ship route, so we have a ship ID, that's fine. So what it should be here that's in the spaceship service, route service, spaceship route. Because at the moment we don't have a. Oh no, we have a get entry. That's what I think we want. Yes, we want get entry. Spaceship entry. Excuse me, cat. Clawing at the carpet. Okay, so that makes a bit more sense, and then we do. I'm just going to rename ship to be that, just so it makes a bit more sense when we do that. Speed, then we have location, okay. So we do the distance traveled. Used. It's not fuel consumption. Update. That's gonna be a pain. Let's shift those to being doubles because it's going to fit the math better. Double. There we go. So what we should also do here is, before a ship goes on a route, verify that it has enough fuel to make the route, or else it's an invalid route. Which we can do in the route service. Dook. Ooh. It's assuming a whole heap of things, so if we do distance. Current fuel is less than fuel required. Why is that all highlighted? It is highlighted in red, isn't it? Not sure why that. Okay, so that should be all good there too. Alrighty. We should then have the fuel ticking down. Changing values of the ship entry, so we want to make sure that we update the ship entry. Alrighty. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm getting pretty tired tonight. Cool. Alrighty. Lots of updates to the ship, services, server tech. So that should process the ship movements. Alright, let's give it a run. What I want to do is see if we're actually processing the server ticks. Now it's going to fail all the places I just realized. So I have a whole heap of services that I have not actually injected. So let's do that. Let's see, ship route service. Let's have a look at our services. So we've got the account, spaceship route, spaceship, space station, trade item, and then we need the trade service as well. Alright, and then we got the server check. Alright, let's try that one again. Cannot consume scope service DB context. So okay, why are we doing that? Let's try again and get more of the error. Alright. Cannot consume a scope service. Okay, Copilot, can you help me? Let's try and update the database to a service lifetime of Singleton. Okay. We could try. Let's see if that does any better. Oop, unable to connect. Okay. Got some issues there with things. Okay, let me quickly check. So that's some database level issues with the model. So now most likely going to have issue with this. We'll see. just on the way that it's going to do things. Alright, let's just get a terminal running. I'll do our human trees. See how it handles. Nope, it's alright. New database. Update. Let's see if it'll do the update. Okay. So that should be fine. We can go have a look there. Go get our super secret password from the app settings. Doesn't let me select it. Alright, connect in. Let's go have a look at that database. We have all, so we have our tables here, so that's fine. Except for we don't have spaceship routes. Ooh, what have I missed? Did I not? Did I not do a? No, I've got another repository for it. That's what I've missed. Haven't added it in here. So where are we up to? So I'm gonna add space stations in here. Sure, do the trade requests. And routes. Right, let's go and new items here. All right. Okay. Yeah, can't map. Type of int is not supported. Int array is not supported. Poop. Oh, how do I do a vector in a? What data type can I use? Apparently there's an int array. Yeah, doesn't quite help me here. Because else Energy Framework would have done that. What do I want to do? Don't want to really store them as X. Y, I don't want to store them as a JSON. So export a vector. don't really want to store them as strings. Might want to consider using Postgres because it does support vectors. Yeah, maybe. As an option, but I do want this to be able to use Canary database backend. It's going to require a migration to Postgres from SQL. Oh, I mean, it can be done. Do I want to do it? Not at the moment, but okay, I think I'm going to have to refactor that quickly. Let's do it as two separate coordinates just to make it simple for the moment, but something we can definitely figure out later. Hi Carix, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. Alrighty. So, can't use the array here, so it's going to use X and then Y. And actually, this becomes the perfect time to shift these to using doubles rather than using ints. Just again, so that the math works out. Alright, and that's going to cause all sorts of issues. Okay. What are you doing with the DB context? Yeah, so I was trying to save in a vector, so essentially a 2D array of integers, but I'm using NT Framework and SQL Server, and it did not like that. It doesn't have a type which will support that conversion. So what I'm doing now is that I'm changing them to individual entries for the XY coordinates, and then I will update the so I'm doing data first. Sorry, it's like it's 10 to 11 here. So yeah, I'm doing model first, so there's no data as of yet, so I can easily replace all this stuff. So I'll code the models first, and then I will add them in to the DB context, and I'm using a repository pattern, so I'm trying to actually abstract away a lot of that connection with, so I have to have DB context to actually tell it to create the tables. But yeah, I'm using the repository pattern here so that I'm abstracting away. So if I do want to come in later, I can replace all of this with something like Postgres or any other database that I want. Okay, and I'll also use this chance to turn these all into doubles because the mathematics with vectors is giving me doubles, and that's okay. Okay, so that should have fixed that. Just build, make sure I haven't hit any errors. Yep. Now let's try and create that migration again. Space station coordinates. So I've got them in space station. We'll use I'm mostly going to come back and revisit this one. Because the problem is, if I wanted to quickly shift this to using 3 dimensions, I wouldn't be able to do that now easily without refactoring the code, which is not great. So that's fine though. Then again, I say that I'm doing the mathematics for the server tick with the assumption that it's all XY coordinates, so really neither here nor there. Okay, cool. Yeah, so what I'd like to do is store them as a vector type, so because I would be able to then store any like n-dimensional amount of data in a vector. It's just more flexible. So, but as I've just said, I've kind of done the mathematics in the server tick to assume that everything is 2-dimension anyway, so I'd have to come back through and update all of this math and all these calculations if I change it anyway. So I may as well store them in 2 separate cells now. Yeah, so you could do it in the way that migration worked. So the couple ways you could store multiple entries in one cell would be if you stored them as a string, so you like comma separate them. You can store JSON data inside a field, so technically I could have set it up as a JSON array and then parsed it back out, but that's a bit messy. I didn't really want to go down that path. Alright, so that's that migration done. So now we should just be able to do that database update. Oh, foreign key. Foreign keys. Yep. So introducing foreign key constraint on table trade request may cause cycles. Specify on delete no action, on update no action, or modify the other foreign key constraints. Okay, so that's on the trade requests. Now this is because I'm using the full objects here. Yeah, that's true. I could do it that way, though I think that would become really messy and hard to see if you're looking at the object in the database and you just wanted to quickly go, hey, what's its coordinates? You would actually have to write a query versus being able to just see it within the row, or you'd have to create a view to see that data. So, but in other areas, that's a completely valid way of doing kind of how do I have multi-row fields. So essentially, in the context of this, every spaceship can have a route. So however many spaceships you have can have routes from what they're traveling on. So that would extend out how many. So coordinates also, every space station will have a coordinate. So that would start to grow quite a lot. Now what can I do here? Because it's creating foreign key constraints and I don't really scratch at that. Don't really want to tie these into foreign keys because the trade request information here is more logging than it is functional. I think what I need to do is change these to use the IDs. Yeah, in more places I'm going to have to update when I fix the ID. Sorry, my cat's making a whole lot of noise. I'm currently using a string for the ID, which is terrible. Don't do it. It's bad. I'm being bad. And I need to fix it. I think next week I'm gonna fix these IDs and get them working properly, because yeah, this is just being messy and I'm just being a bit lazy. So I need to fix that. But I'm doing the IDs here so that it doesn't create that foreign key constraint, because I don't want that at the moment. Okay, now I have to remove that migration. Of course it failed because I just changed something. That's a whole heap of stuff I didn't want to do right now. Tell you what, let's go back on that. What we'll do is we won't store the trade request for the moment. I think I'm still going to have some foreign key issues on some stuff. Let's go remove that migration to undo that. So go back to the context. Okay, just make sure we can build. Alright, let's try and re-add that migration. So I removed. Okay, so remove the last migration. All right. Let's add new tables. Really descriptive. That's all right. Now let's try to update the database. All right, there we go. That seems to have updated okay. Let's go have a look. Refresh. So we have the player, spaceship entries, spaceship routes, the spaceships themselves. So we have the XYZs on the routes, that's fine, and the space stations, trade items. Okay, that's fine. Cool. Now, can I do a startup and will it run without just instantly dying? Okay. Alright, so that's running every 1 second. And it's running a database command because it's then, so it's getting all the routes from the database, processing over the 0 routes at the moment, which is fine. And then that's just processing. Cool. So I think I'm going to leave it here tonight. It's 11 o'clock. So I think next week the plan here is we will go through and so we're going to fix the ID issue. So we're going to most likely throw away the whole database to redo this, but we will be shifting the ID to using just an integer. I don't think I need to go into the GUID format as of just yet, but we'll use an ID, we'll shift how the player is being stored, and then we'll shift all of the IDs away from string to int. Just to clean that up so we don't have that issue, and that should clean that up. And then after we do that refactor, I'm gonna actually start testing putting some data in and seeing if the server tick actually processes that data correctly. Cool. So what we got done tonight, though, we got quite a few more things, kind of entries and models added in. We got services and controllers added in for them as well, and we created our background worker to do the server tick management and actually process some of that data on a timer. Alrighty, so I will commit the current changes. Materials to database. Some of the issues, but more to fix next time. I'll shift that up. Cool, and then we're going to go and we're going to create a pull request, and we're going to get this merged into our main. There we go. And we'll create that pull request. Now you can see everything will be merged in here, all our commits, and we're just going to merge that all in. Cool. We'll leave branch where it is. So I think we've still got. Do we still have the previous, or have I deleted? No, I've deleted them. I'm going to leave week 3 at the moment, just because I might want to refer back to it before we do any of the big changes. So yeah, so that's it for tonight. Tuesday nights isn't my normal, but I think that might start to become more normal. Finding Monday nights is a bit of a struggle to get on. But feel free to tune in next time, and we will continue developing. Till then, I hope everyone has a pleasant rest of their week, and I'll catch you next time. See yous.